Spirit of God, come down. Spirit of God, rain down. Spirit of God, come into my life. Spirit of God, rain down. Let your fire fall on me. Oh, Spirit of God, fall on me. Spirit, fall on me. Oh, let your fire fall on me. Oh, Spirit of God, fall on me. Spirit, fall on me. I pray you rain down, rain down in my life, Lord. Rain down, rain. I pray you rain down, rain down in my life, Lord. Rain down, rain. Oh, Spirit of God.
Dear friends, now we are going to analyze the great miracle performed by Prophet Elisha, and it is narrated in chapter 5 of 2 Kings. And first of all, let us take the story. The commander of the army of the Syrian king became infected with leprosy. And leprosy, of course, was not a sickness accepted by the people. And therefore, he was in a terrible situation. And he tried to do all kinds of medicines available we can think of. And there was a woman, and probably an Israelite. She said to the wife of Naaman, who got leprosy, if my master was in Israel, there is a man of God and he would have healed him. And naturally, the wife reported the incident to her husband, Naaman. And Naaman went to the king and told him, there is a man of God in Israel, and if I go to him, I will get cured of my leprosy. And the king was glad. But politically speaking, the king of Syria and the king of Israel may not have been in good terms. Syria was very, very powerful than Israel. And Israel was in a state of declined power, we can say. Anyhow, the king of Syria wrote a letter to the king of Israel saying, my commander of the army is affected with leprosy. Kindly heal him. Of course, seeing this letter, the king of Israel was shocked. And he was thinking in another line. He thought the king of Syria is trying to find out some reason to make war with him. And therefore, he tore his clothes and said, how can it happen? How can I heal a leper? It is impossible. And as if hearing a blasphemy, he tore his clothes. And this is the background information that is given. The the military chief Naaman thus come to Israel. And when he came, the letter was handed over to the king, and we have already explained the reaction of the king. And hearing of this incident, that the king has torn his clothes, we find the reaction of Prophet Elisha recorded here. Why should the king tear his clothes? Does he not know that there is a prophet in Israel? Let him come to me and I will heal him. And that was the attitude of Elisha the prophet. And of course we see Elisha was waiting for Naaman to come to him. And hearing of this, Naaman was very happy. He could see the prophet, and then everything will be miraculously healed. And that is what he is expecting for. And hence, Naaman now comes to meet Elisha. But contrary to the expectation of Naaman, Elisha does not even come out of the house. When Naaman was coming to his house, Elisha sent a word. Let him go and dip himself 7 times in the waters of Jordan. He did not even come down to see the chief of the military of Syria. He was a great man, just like the second person of authority in the land. But Elisha had no such a consideration. He did not even go out of his house. He just said or sent word through his messengers, okay, you go and dip yourself 7 times in the waters of Jordan. And hearing this, naturally, the minister or Naaman became so angry. He was expecting that at least Elisha would come and see him. Nothing is there, and then he is asked to go and dip himself, and that also 7 times, as if he is dealt with like a child, just like somebody is asking a child to do this or that. He is asked to do, and it was unbearable for him. And he wanted to return to his own home country without doing anything, because he felt humiliated, belittled by these kinds of requests made by Elisha. And the servants of Naaman said to him, if the prophet had asked my Lord to do some very great task, very difficult things, you would have certainly done it with great joy. But this is such a simple thing, and why you should get worried about it? And there's still another reason. When Elisha's words were communicated to him, we already mentioned he was very angry. And not only that, he made a comment. The waters in Jordan is muddy water. Far better is the water that flows through the rivers of Damascus. Therefore, he was not at all in a mood to do what the prophet would say or prophet said. And that is the reason why the servants of Naaman said to him, if the the prophet had asked to do something difficult, you would have done it. Then why don't you try doing this simple thing? And at their insistence, we see Naaman gets ready to do what the prophet had foretold. Of course, he did not like to do it. And he did not like the waters of Jordan. He already mentioned these are muddy waters, or it is muddy water. And therefore, he was not at all happy with it. But still, at the compulsion of his servants, he goes to River Jordan. And as the prophet had directed, he dips himself fully 7 times in the waters of Jordan, the muddy waters of Jordan, according to him. And now, what is the result? After the 7th time, or once he dipped himself 7 times, it is said, his flesh was restored. That is totally free of leprosy. And it became so fine and tender as that of a child. Such a miraculous healing occurred. And now he is totally a cured man. And his flesh and the skin, everything is so tender. He has regained his youthhood, we can say. And when he saw that he is healed, he was jumping with joy. And his servants too, they all were rejoicing so greatly. And naturally, Naaman asked his servants to bring all the presents he had brought with him to give to the prophet. And when they were carrying the presents in different carts, and like bullock cart or carts driven by horses, whatever it be, and all these were being brought to the house of the prophet. And what happens now? The prophet said, okay, I don't want anything from what you have brought. You take it back. And Naaman felt again sorrowful. Why? Prophet is not accepting any gift from me. Whatever it be, the prophet or prophetic words, they were observed, and Naaman sorrowfully went back with all that he had brought with him. And at this time, Gehazi, the servant of Prophet Elisha, he always had an eye on wealth. He wanted to get more and more things, gold and silver and dresses, things like that. And therefore, when he saw that the prophet did not receive anything which the minister Naaman and others had brought, he felt a little bit sad. If the prophet doesn't need it, he could have got it and given me. That is the way he might have thought. Okay, whatever it be, Naaman had gone back, and Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, now stealthily goes after Naaman. And when he reached Naaman, he had already gone a good distance. And when he had reached Naaman, he said to Naaman in a pleading way and made a request. Now only my master remembered that he wants to get something to give somebody else as a present. And therefore, you can give me a few presents. And Naaman was overjoyed hearing this. At least now the prophet is ready to get something from him. And what did he do? He gave all that he had brought and gave it to Gehazi. And Gehazi was so happy to accept all this. And Naaman was happy because finally the prophet has accepted something from him. And hence he was happy. And Gehazi was happy because he got all kinds of presents from Naaman. Hence he also was happy. And Naaman went away, and Gehazi came back to Elisha. But he did not come directly back to Elisha. He went to his home with the presents, and he hid all the presents in his house because he did not want Elisha to know about it. If Elisha comes to know about it, he may get angry. And therefore, he did not want Elisha to know about it. Therefore, he took all the presents to his home and hid somewhere. And then he came back to Elisha. And when Elisha came back, when Gehazi came back to Elisha, Elisha asked him, "Where were you, Gehazi?" And Gehazi, in a very lazy way, replied, "Oh, I did not go anywhere. I was here and there." But Elisha knew because of his divine power that Gehazi had gone to Naaman and received the gifts. And Elisha said, "I had gone after you in spirit, and I have seen that you have received all presents from Naaman, even when you knew that I had denied them, and you have kept them in your home. And hence, since you have gone against the will of God, the leprosy that left Naaman will now cling on to you." In other words, you are going to be a leper in his stead. And from that moment onwards, he became a leprous person. Okay, this is the entire story. And now we can analyze this story and try to find out some theological messages. And what are the theological messages we can derive? Okay, there are different messages to be derived from this incident. First of all, we can say Naaman is a Gentile person, not belonging to Judaism. Therefore, he is away from the faith in Yahweh. And when it is said, there is a person who can heal leprosy in Israel, it was also a confession saying that We have no such power in our nation. Or if we think further, we can say the entire incident refers to the incapacity of the Aramaic gods or the Syrian gods, you can say. Okay, if the Syrian gods had the power to heal the leper, Naaman would not have come to Israel. And therefore, first of all, the story reveals this fact: the incapacity of the Syrian gods to heal, to touch the life of the person and transform his life. Therefore, that is the first thing that we can say or we can find here. Then, incapacity of the Aramaic religion. That's the first point. And secondly, we find it is also a symbol that the pagan world, the Gentile world, comes to embrace faith in Yahweh. Okay, now they begin to believe in the power of Yahweh or believe in Yahweh. And hence we can say the story symbolizes the coming of the Gentiles to embrace Yahwistic faith. Therefore, this is a very important theological dimension or derivation. The prophet stands for Judaism. He's the representative of Yahweh, we can say. And now Yahweh is there and his power is acknowledged. But at the same time, we see even when the power of Yahweh is acknowledged, when the power of Yahweh is acknowledged by the Gentiles, they come to believe in him. Therefore, this story or this miracle practically shows that the Gentiles begin to believe in the power of Yahweh. It is not for the sake of healing, but more than that, they believe in Yahweh. Therefore, the miracle is a symbol of this new beginning. The Gentiles begin to believe in Yahweh and embrace Yahwistic faith or accept Yahweh as their God. Therefore, this is a turning point, we can say. And this is another important message of this story. That is what we can say. And again, we find when Naaman asked Elisha to accept the gifts, he denied. And then Naaman asked for something else. Verse 17, Naaman said, "If not, please let 2 mule loads of earth be given to your servant, for your servant will no longer offer burnt offering or sacrifice to any god except the Lord." And therefore, he is asking for some earth or mud from the land of Israel. What's the meaning of this? When he is back, he wants to pray to the God of Israel. He is now a staunch believer of Yahweh, believer in Yahweh. And he wants to pray to Yahweh. But he thinks the soil of Syria is not good for it. And therefore, he says, "Kindly allow me to take 2 mule loads of the earth from Israel, so that I can stand on this soil and pray to Yahweh. See the impact of this incident. And what is the impact? Naaman thinks even the soil of Israel is holy. One thing. And it also conveys another important message. Even if he is a Gentile person, if he believes in Yahweh, he can pray from his own country. Need not come to Judah or Israel. He can pray to Yahweh from his own country. And therefore, he wants to pray to Yahweh. And for that purpose, he wants to take with him 2 mule loads of soil. Of course, we know it is not much, but he can spread it on the ground there, and then he can pray, stand on it and pray to Yahweh, even from the soil of, even from the soil of Syria. And therefore, this is another meaning that we can find here. Even the soil of Israel is holy, and he can pray to Yahweh from anywhere, and especially from Syria. And that is again pointed out. Then, it is also said, Elisha always stands for monotheistic belief. And through this incident, the belief in Yahweh grows or increases. Monotheistic belief increases. And how can we understand it? Because Naaman comes to believe in Yahweh, and he wants to pray to Yahweh standing on the soil brought from Israel. And hence, he is declaring to the world that Yahweh is the real God, not their God. Of course, they were considering earlier the God of Syria is stronger than the God of Israel, and hence they are more powerful. But now he confesses Yahweh is the real God, and the Syrian gods are practically without power. They are not really gods. And therefore, the belief in monotheism, it becomes all the more stronger and we can say deep-rooted. And that is what we can understand about it. Okay, thus we see the incapacity of the Aramaic religion, and then we mention the pagan world comes to believe in Yahweh and his power, and they can worship Yahweh in their own country, and so on. And again, there is another beautiful lesson conveyed from the story of Gehazi. The people are taught that the power of God is not to be used for making money. And this is very true. And the prophet did not get any remuneration because he is given the power to work miracles by God. And naturally, nobody is to receive money for the sake of prayer or for the sake of doing spiritual needs or catering to spiritual needs and so on. But here, Gehazi was a greedy man, and he was led by his greed. And that is the reason why he went after Naaman and got the gifts. And therefore, what is the story? We are not to be moved by greed, and greed will lead us to destruction. And that is what we can really understand about it. The greed will lead one to destruction. And Gehazi, being greedy, finally lost all that he had. He wanted to accumulate something more, but what is the use? When he became leprous, he cannot enjoy them anymore. And therefore, this is a warning given to all the people who are led by greed. Greed will lead us to destruction or fall. It will never let us grow. And therefore, we also should be careful in our thought, in our word, and in our attitude, we can say. Therefore, this is the lesson from the story of Gehazi. And in general, we can say 2-3 things. And when it is said, the event is narrated, perhaps we can say it is to glorify Elisha, because the words he used and the way he reacts. Okay, we have already mentioned about it. Why should the king tear his clothes? There is a prophet in Elisha, and send him to me. And therefore, he does not say there is a God in Israel, but he says there is a prophet in Israel. Therefore, let him be sent to me. And this would remind us that the story is giving glory not to God, but to the person of the prophet himself. Therefore, that is emphasized more than glorifying God. That's what we can say about it. And here also we find it is related to the politics. And here, the prophet Elisha handles, or he is involving himself in political affairs of the nation. There is a political relationship here. Okay, one side is Syria, the other is Israel. And he is now, or Elisha is now a uniting link between the two. Therefore, we can say it is a political, or the beginning of the political involvement of the prophet. That's what we can see. Okay, now as we see, the pagan world believes in Yahweh, and they can pray to Yahweh from any country and so on. And therefore, we can see the impact of the story. First of all, believe or trust in Yahweh. Yahweh will work miracles for you. Then Yahweh is the only God. And Syrian gods are really not gods. They do not have the power to save. And again, God's gifts are not to be made use of for making money, for personal gain, let us say. And sometimes we may not be asking for money, but for some personal gain. And therefore, that also is strictly forbidden. And that's what we have to understand from this story. Therefore, we find the important miracles performed by prophet Elisha, and they have their own meaning. And in the particular context, we find these contribute to the greatness of the man of God. And at the same time, they make, or they bring out the attitude of faith that we see in the great prophet. Okay, and by this we conclude our reflections on Elisha. We have a few more reflections on Elisha, and that we will do in the next session. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jesus, for your love that you have revealed to us, and for the love that we share together as your body. Grant us the grace to be alert to your promptings and live in endless love. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.